people here on the chat that have said attitude, so that would certainly sit within there. You might also define talent as someone that's a people manager, so someone that may not always be the best at their roles. They're not necessarily amazing at what their job is, but they are a great people manager, which is also excellent to have in the organisation. So it's looking at who your people are and what their potential is. So how do you manage talent in your organisation? So I've got a poll here. So if you can just put whether you think it's nothing official, ad hoc, or do you have a talent programme? So I'm just going to launch my poll. And if you could just vote and let me know. So how do you currently manage talent in your organisation? Okay. That's interesting. I'm going to share these results for you, just a few more people voting. So it's looking like the ad hoc is coming through there. So 31% of you saying nothing official, 48% are saying it's ad hoc, and 21% are saying you do have a talent program. Okay, let me share those results. Okay, so hopefully you can see those. So that's interesting, isn't it? So 22% of you do have a talent program, 46% do to some extent, but 32 have nothing official. So those of you that have voted for yes, you have a talent program, could you just let me know via the chat what or who are you identifying within your talent program? So is it sort of graduate level? Is it leadership? Or is it something different? Be interested to know. So who are you identifying? Of those that do have a talent program, who are you identifying? Or is it everyone and anyone? So got here, so leadership, so your programs all around leadership, some of the people managers, various programs for employees at various levels, leadership with potential, school leaver talent program, people managed talent program. Just reading through these here. All individuals with the talent to share. Okay. Ad hoc for others, leadership, various levels, roles, 9-box grid. Brilliant. So it looks like some of you, all employees are mapped into it. So it looks like some of you do have a talent program and those that don't are just doing it ad hoc. Super. So that's good to know. So how do we identify talent? So I know this is, it really does vary dependent on your organisation, and talent really can start at any point. So for me, I believe that talent really must start at recruitment and selection. Now, the recruitment selection isn't necessarily about bringing someone in straight from school. It could be the recruitment and selection for someone that's moved internally. The idea is that we're looking at when we bring that person into the business. The key is really for me is that the talent must ultimately align with the business and the individual's goals. Now, initially, it'll be addressed at recruitment selection, and you might find that if you have an organisation with a huge skills gap, you aren't able to identify enough talent, it might be the reason that you need to have a recruitment strategy. So let's look at different ways that we can identify talent. So we can look at recruitment selection. We can look at identifying what that career path is for somebody. We can look at making sure that they have clear objectives along the way. Career checking points, so short-term, medium and long-term goals. So when we're doing development reviews with people, we can look at what their short, medium and long-term career goals are. We could also look at making sure that we identify talent by making sure they tie in with business objectives, providing support and nurturing them. And finally, as I think some of you had mentioned there, linking in with qualifications and skills gaps. So what challenges do you face when empowering your talent? So you've got your talent, you know who they are, you've identified, but what challenges do you have to empower them? So if you can answer in the chat, it'd be good to hear your current challenges. So Lauren says lack of time, fairness, Sue, limited upward mobility options, Employees don't always want to progress. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point as well, isn't it? Is that actually you may well have identified the talent, but actually, do they want to move forward? Do they feel that they have enough motivation to move forward in that? And actually, we're going to cover that in a little bit later. Yep, get employees to take up the programs, more to encourage diverse talent, agreed. Time and process, mindset, absolutely. It's about making sure that we identify that people have the right mindset, and I'm going to again look at that towards the end of the session. Safe space to flourish. Excellent. Other business priorities, absolutely. So some of the things I've got here is the challenges that I've identified when I've been working in a business is quite often we have some misalignment with business and individual goals. So you might have your strategic business goals that have been cascaded right from the top, which is to achieve a certain number of objectives, but actually they don't always align with the individual goals. So the individual is going in one path and the business is going in another. And what happens there is if people are going in two different directions, we have misalignment, and either that person leaves the business, they don't feel empowered, or they move within a different role. So the key is that we need to empower people by making sure that they understand what those business goals are, but they do match with what the individuals are trying to do as well. So out of interest, when do you start to nurture and empower your talent? When does that start in your organization? Does that start once they're through the door? Does it start for some of you who are identifying leaders? Is that when they've been in the business for a certain amount of time? Do you start to kind of focus on the people that are high performers? Where does that start for you? So some people said as soon as they start, empower from the start, prior to joining, scoping out individuals, during onboarding process, from the grassroots level, when potential is recognised, as soon as they start. So I think there's a few different schools of thought here. I mean, certainly from my experience, I would certainly say that it needs to be starting as soon as they've walked through the door. However, it might be that their potential hasn't been recognised, or maybe there isn't a motivation to want to achieve or to move forward. So I think it's important that some people should, that those conversations need to be happening with those people, but they really need to be starting right from the moment that they start. So inspiring, empowering talent development from day one. So for me, from my experience and from the experience that I got from the chat here, it really needs to start almost from the pre-boarding. So why have I said pre-boarding? Well, I think a couple of you have talked about the matrix there. So it might be that you've identified that you have got a skills gap within your organization. So maybe you are lacking a particular skill, or you need a particular person with a particular qualification. So your onboarding for that that empowerment and that talent might actually start even before they walk through the door. So you've recognized, identified who you need. So once they're on board, you then need to onboard that person and inspire. So I think someone mentioned there is that you need to try and motivate them. And I think that is absolutely key to empowerment, is about the motivation aspect. And that starts within that, and as Jenny said here, yeah, on that onboarding process. So what does your induction program look like? Are you having those career conversations, or are you leaving them to at the end? And I know certainly in some of the slightly more corporate or old school places that I've worked before, the leadership and conversations don't tend to happen until much later on, and it's almost like a, I don't know, a bit of a network where, you know, you get identified as leadership, and then you go taken into a dark room, and, you know, it's like Masons, shaking hands and all that kind of thing. And actually, it's not very transparent, is it? And actually, what you then tend to do is ostracize other people in the business because they don't feel that they've actually got a chance of becoming leadership. And it really should be for every single person that has got potential within the organization. So yeah, so onboarding and inspiring people right from the get-go. Now, from my experience, I feel that once people have started, you need to kind of capitalize on that excitement, and you need to be having those career conversations. And within those first 6 to 12 weeks, we need to be identifying what those strengths are and trying to push and align them with the business. So we want to enable their performance by utilizing their strengths. So we could be doing a matrix with them. It could be a one-to-one. It could be a mid-year appraisal. The idea, or it could be end of probation, probably more likely in the first 6 to 12 weeks. The idea is that we're having those career conversations early on and identifying that talent. Then in 3 to 12 months, what we want to be doing is we want to be seeing some form of promotion. Now, when I say promotion, I don't necessarily mean a promotion to a bigger job title or more money. What I mean to say is feeling people are recognised. You want to be your role within the organisation needs to be formalised. So it could be that they're given a slightly different title. So they've moved from junior to assistant, or maybe they've passed their probation and you recognise it some way by sharing with the organisation that they are they're now a full member of the team. So somehow we need to recognise that within that first 6 to 12 months, they have been recognised. Okay, so I just want to share with you a model here because I think this is really pertinent to what we're talking about today. So making sure that we're having high performance and empowering our people. Now, this is a model that I got from Gate and Cavacon. Now, they came up with the idea that to truly empower our talent, we need to think about 3 key areas. First of all, we need to enhance skills. And to do that, we need to understand what their motivation is. And to do that, we need to provide them with opportunities. So effectively, it means we need to understand what motivates them. We need to understand what the skills are or what skills they require in order to achieve the next step. And then finally, we need to provide them with the opportunity. Now, most organisations are great at helping with skills and development, but what we're not always great at is being clear what that next step is. So if I can look at this, for example, in a sales structure, let's say recruitment, mainly because that's my main background, there is a clear-cut path generally on what the steps are in order to get to the top. Now, these steps are provided with key milestones, objectives, constant feedback, and generally the motivation comes in the form of OTE. Now, in Jan 2018, these people, Gay and Capricorn, thought that this was really, really important and actually would help if we could adapt this model. This would help to keep our team empowered. So here we go. We've got skills, opportunity, and motivation. So let's look at that in more detail. So if we were to look at the skills, we could look at training and development. So what training and development opportunities are we supporting them with? Okay, so is that a career framework? Are we discussing with them the career opportunities they have? Are there any qualifications on offer? So it might be that they could do a qualification to support the role they're doing, and obviously that would empower them, that would reinforce them within their role. It could be some on-the-job training. So maybe you have an in-house training suite, maybe some e-learning that you've written or maybe you've brought in, or it's just some part of your induction program. So the idea is that we're trying to motivate by giving people some skills. So quite often in graduate programs, particularly if it's around finance or more of a professional skill, so legal, as you go through the program, you would normally gain exams or qualifications to keep you going through. So you'd be empowering people by getting them to do those those qualifications. So I've got a mark here. For some soft roles, soft skills need to be considered with development interventions, not just formal learning. Absolutely, I think that's really key there. So we need to be thinking about those soft skills as well, particularly around communication or other areas within the business. Again, it's about thinking about what those business needs are as well as the individual's needs. Okay, so that was skills. So now I'm going to look at motivation. Now, for me, this is absolutely key in empowering your team. So just out of interest, why do you think motivation is important? Why do you think we should be motivated to come to work? Drives performance. Thanks, Lawrence. Purpose. Retains. High inclination to do a good job. Supports collaborative working, engagement, drives engagement and productivity. Absolutely. So we know we need, and it makes work fun, thanks, yeah. So we know we need to be motivated. So how do we understand what people's motivations are and why is it important? Well, first of all, I think it's really important to find out what people's career drivers are. So potentially we've identified right from the start that they are happy, they're joining our organisation, and we've had that career development discussion with them. So what are their career drivers? So you might find that some people want to get right to the top, and some people are just happy plodding along. Whatever they've decided at that stage, that doesn't mean it's set in stone. It just means that we're trying to find out where they want to be. We used to have that old question, didn't we? Some of you still may use it, where, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years, which is it's a bit old school, but it is actually can be quite useful as a question, because it makes people think about what they're trying to achieve in their career. So it's also, in terms of motivation, really important to find out what people's personal drivers are. Now, for me, this is really, really important, because actually we all come to work for a reason, don't we? So as a business owner, we like to think that people are coming because they want to do well for the business. And of course that is true, but we also come for other reasons. Has anyone got any ideas of what your personal drivers could be? So when I'm saying personal, yep, your well-being. So you might choose a role because it's close to your home, where it offers flexible working. Lovely. Yeah, your family, could be social, mortgage, autonomy, challenges. So some of those, so I'd say challenges are actually probably more around your success drivers, impacting others. Yep, that could be. So the way that I've defined personal drivers, and you can have a think about this and think about whether this is relevant to you. But for me, I think personal drivers is really important, because we all come to work for different reasons. So some people come to work because they want to they're motivated to do well for their family. Some of us might want to come to work because we want to have a nice car, and we want to earn money to have that nice car or a nice house, or it could be that we want to have something more materialistic. So your personal drivers could be material based, it could be social, economically based, it could be family driven. The key is everyone is different, right? So we need to understand what those drivers are. And for me, I think this is where businesses quite often miss a trick, because when we're in our appraisals, even though we don't necessarily need to delve too much into people's personal life, it is important to recognize that people do have a personal life. And I think this has become really apparent when we're working in a hybrid world, because actually we're suddenly realizing that people do have families or dogs or cats or, you know, pets of some description, and that they're driven to come to work because of their commitment to that. So I've also written about motivation called success drivers. Now, this could be about you being motivated for success. So again, what does success look like to you? Is success monetary? Is it about the fancy title? Is it about having everyone know who you are in the organization? So what drives success to you, and what does that look like in your organization? So I think it's important to be asking people these questions to truly get their buy-in and engagement when you're trying to empower your talent. Now, going back to the Gay and Cavacon model, I just want to highlight as well about the opportunities, because this is really key. Because actually, if we want people to be promoted and we want to empower our talent, we need to make sure that there are roles available, or there are opportunities available to them. So what do those opportunities look like, and are we allowing them the flexibility to do them? So let's say social activity or networking. So in a hybrid world, are we allowing people to, or are we demonstrating or giving enough opportunity to do networking, and how are we doing that? So in the old days, it might be going to a bar, or it might be organising a club. It might not be quite so easy now. So how do you organise an opportunity of networking? Again, I might not have the answer to this, but this is something for you to think about, and how that might be in your organisation. We also need to think about those career frameworks. So I don't know, how many of you have career frameworks in your business? Now, for me, this has been one of the key drivers of empowering our talent, because people can see that there is a clear drivers of building blocks to where they want to be. And as I said, even though it's not set in stone, it's something that can allow them to see that there is a future beyond the role they're in, and it keeps people motivated, and they can understand and identify the competencies they need to achieve in order to move through the business. So it's a nice, transparent way of identifying those opportunities in the business. Yeah, so some people say we have it and we don't use it. So I guess you need to think about, if you're not using it, then maybe it's not fit for purpose. Maybe it needs rewriting. Maybe you just need, instead of, I know in the companies I've worked in, it was like a 25-page dossier with like competency framework and a matrix, and actually I think it did put off quite a few people. So I've rewritten one in my organization. It was called the acceleration plan, so it's just a bit jazzy, maybe a bit salesy, but the idea is that it was a one page and people could clearly see what they needed to do in order to move through the business. Now, slightly easier in a recruitment, because there are only a certain amount of roles, but you could do different ones in different organizations. Also, if we were going to give people opportunities, are we giving people enough projects to work on? So this is a great way of empowering people. So you might find that there's a skills gap and they don't have the skills, but actually if you give them the opportunity to work on a project, it would empower them and make them feel that they can do it. So that would certainly motivate them as well as empower. So in terms of just a bit of a summary there of how to develop skills, we need to look at training and development as a way of empowering people, maybe formal qualifications, and certainly on-the-job training. And I think back to someone else's point as well, making sure that you do the soft skills training as well as the formal training. So we've got challenges because we're working, I've put remote, but really it's a hybrid environment now. So the challenges are that we're not face to face. So therefore it reduces our team, maybe gives us less opportunity. And sometimes we're a bit unclear on what our business objectives are. So we need to be very clear when we're talking with people and empowering people. We need to explain what those objectives are so they know what they need to do. So what stops mid-performers? So I said I was just going to think about what stops people from performing more, because we talked about the opportunities and skills and motivation. So let's just have a look here. So sometimes we have a mid or a high performer who lacks confidence. So again, this is where we need to be thinking about different ways of empowering them. Sometimes they think they don't know how. Sometimes they think it's too hard or it's out of reach, or maybe they haven't been engaged or excited about it. And finally, maybe they need some coaching. So it might be that they've identified the opportunity, but they need some support in how to get there. So maybe some coaching, or certainly some questions or some one-to-one support to get them to where they need to be. So just getting last slide now. So what do you think you'll do to empower your talent? So just be great to have some answers here in your chat. What do you think you'll do to empower your talent? So ask, as Duncan says, it's going to ask them about their aspirations, offer coaching. Reinforce their confidence. Yeah. So I think if there were some key takeaways, I think the important things to do in terms of empowering talent is set out clear goals, make sure you have a dialogue with your staff, make sure you know what their motivations are, make sure that their own individual objectives align with the business objectives, and understand and try and empower that talent as soon as they walk through the door. So we need to try and accelerate that talent in order to keep it, because what tends to happen is if you don't keep hold of that talent within 12 months, what tends to happen is they can end up leaving and you have retention issues on your hands. So there are definitely positives to empowering talent, because you want to keep good talent in your business, but you also want to make sure that you don't lose anyone either. So yeah, so have regular check-ins, career conversations, connect them to learning opportunities. Yeah, tell them what success looks like. Absolutely. Does anyone have any questions for me? If you want to pop them in the chat, I can. Okay, so Steph said, how do you encourage individuals to take ownership? So yeah, it's a really good question, Steph. So I think the way to encourage individuals to take ownership is really around the motivation, because we need to understand what their motivations are. This is where I think quite a few businesses get it wrong, because they're saying, well, these are the business objectives. And obviously you can motivate people by saying these are your KPIs, or these are your SMART objectives. You need to achieve it in order to meet your end of year review. But you want people, this whole point of this, isn't it, is that you want people to feel empowered. So the idea is that you make sure that they are motivated. So it's about kind of doing things slightly left of field. So instead of just asking how they're motivated at work, but also, what else motivates you? You might find that someone says, I'm really interested in CSR. You think, well, or, diversity. Okay, that's great. We actually have a gap in our business around that. So we'd love to support you. So you might find then that person wouldn't necessarily go on that natural career path, but maybe they've gone on something slightly different. But again, it's all business beneficial. Okay, how do you connect empowerment with reward? So the other, I guess the answer to that is, what reward are they looking for? So what do they see success? How do they define success? How do you create a culture of excellence amongst staff? Everyone does mediocre work and leaves the duty. Okay, how do you create a culture of excellence? So again, I guess you just need to identify what excellence is. I think it's important that you do have a framework and be very transparent about what that is. So it might be that that's where you start. So you work out what the roles are within your business, what success in that role looks like, and then launch that out to your teams. Okay, so some mid-performers hit a glass ceiling. Leadership at senior levels is still mainly white, male and middle upper class. So we need to break down barriers and welcome different voices. How do you think this can be enabled? Okay, that's quite a big question. I think that's actually probably a question for another webinar. But in terms of mid-performers hitting glass ceilings, I think we need to understand that there are other roles within the business. So it could be that they take on projects, I think I mentioned before. So, what other things are they interested in? So it could be, it looks like maybe you're referring to, could be some diversity issues in the business. So could they take that? Could they champion it and then link some level of reward with it? So we need to break down barriers. Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, it's important to just allow people to do, and also say, that it's okay to have some time to do other projects. I know a lot of people have said, well, if I do that project, that means it's going to impact the job that I'm doing at the moment. So you need to allow, and people say, yeah, that's fine. We will make allowances for that. So reduce their KPIs if they're spending time on something else, and build it into their objectives. So it's not always just about those big promotions. Again, it's about that, how they're motivated. How would you create a career framework for a small and flat organization? So I'm not sure what kind of organization it is, but the business that I built from scratch was one, and now we're 45. So the way that I did it was I worked out exactly who I wanted in the business in terms of what roles I needed, and then I started to work out what competencies they would need. looking at how I would recruit them. And then once they came on board, I'd start to have those career conversations with them to try and get them through the business. Super. So keep your questions coming, and if I can answer them, I will. Okay, so thank you so much for those that have joined. I appreciate it. It was very, very quick. It's such a big, meaty topic for me. I could actually spend quite a long time here. So apologies, I sort of rushed through it, but because there's just so much to cover. So in terms of what's coming up, we do have another one next week. That will be how to conduct a remote development session, and Lucinda will be back in her normal slot, developing a learning culture in a very remote hybrid world. And we also have the HR Uprising podcast, which are absolutely crucial if you are working in an HR, or maybe not an HR capacity, but maybe an operational capacity. Really, really useful. And that's also based on the best-selling book, How to Be a Change Superhero. But I hope that's been useful for you today. Happy if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want to ask me any more questions, please do. You can wait at the end. I'll wait for a few more minutes. Otherwise, hope you enjoy the rest of your lunch break, and hopefully see you again soon. Absolutely, Brett. My colleague Yako will be in touch with you, Brett. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.